West African countries step up surveillance as Guinea scrambles to contain its latest Ebola outbreak. Zimbabwe receives its first batch of Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines donated by China. And excitement across Africa ahead of Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's confirmation as head of the World Trade Organization. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories making headlines this hour. Nigerian farmers and fishermen hail decision to allow them to sue Royal Dutch Shell in English courts. And in your sport, we talk to Senegalese wrestling queen Isabelle Sambo as she takes the sport to more girls in her country. We begin the hour in Guinea, where the health agency has confirmed a new Ebola outbreak in that country. 7 cases and at least 3 deaths have so far been reported in the country's southeast region. 7 of those who had contracted the illness had attended a funeral in Goeke town earlier this month. The health ministry says they've begun contact tracing of individuals who may have come into contact with the sick. Some are already in isolation.
Very early this morning, the Suffolk Conakry laboratory confirmed the presence of the Ebola virus. So this puts Guinea in a situation of Ebola epidemic. There were a total of 7 cases, including 3 deaths. Of the 7, 4 were men and 3 were women. 3 were isolated, 1 in Conakry and 2 in Zerekore.
The 7 cases are the first declared since the country last battled the disease about 5 years ago. The government has sent an emergency team to support local teams in Goeke and has accelerated the procurement of Ebola vaccines from the World Health Organization. Health experts in Guinea say these latest cases could be a major setback for the country, which is also battling COVID-19. The new cases are in the same region where the previous Ebola epidemic started in Guinea. More than 11,000 people died in that outbreak, which also hit neighboring Liberia and Sierra Leone between 2014 and 2016.
I was in panic. I couldn't even control myself when I learned that Ebola has returned to Guinea because of what we went through in 2013 and 2014 with Sierra Leone and Liberia. We are Africans, we are poor, and if diseases like Ebola or the coronavirus appear in Africa, it is only God who will save us.
Well, to give us some more details and the latest, we're now joined on the phone by Tejan Bangura, a journalist and Sahel specialist from Conakry, Guinea. Tejan, thank you so much for joining us. What's the situation in Guinea and how is the country coping with this latest Ebola outbreak? Well, it seems to not have Tejan on the line with us. Let's move on to other news that's making headlines at this hour. Germany has tightened its border controls in an attempt to curb the spread of more contagious coronavirus variants, while Spain's Catalonia region has held elections overshadowed by the pandemic.
On Sunday, Germany tightened its border controls with the Czech Republic and neighbouring Austria's Tyrol region, which have seen a sharp increase in the COVID variant first detected from South Africa. More than 200 travellers were stopped from crossing the border into Bavaria, with only a small number of exceptions, such as essential workers and those with trade links between the two countries.
It's good to see that the measures we have taken are having an effect in Bavaria. A few weeks ago, we were facing a dark, difficult time, so we had to take consistent measures.
In Spain's Catalonia region, voting has begun to choose its regional government. Special measures have been put in place to ensure the safety of voters. Those groups who are especially vulnerable were asked to vote early when the polling stations first opened. Spain has seen its infection rates fall, with the 14-day average dropping by nearly half since its record peak this time last month.
I think we all need to recognise that this is not over. We are still in the midst of controlling the pandemic, so we need to be very careful with what we do.
Now, Spain has just surpassed 1 million completed vaccinations, but there are plans to try and ramp up the process. Some regions have announced they plan to use sports stadiums as a way of increasing the amount of vaccines administered. Finally, in Belgium, one of the oldest street carnivals in Europe has been cancelled. Normally, the small southern town of Binche is bursting with partygoers and festivities. For this year at least, the gigantic heads will have to sit on top of specially built poles as the locals hope for better times ahead. Rahul Pathak, CGTN, Madrid.
Let's move to the United States, which is reporting fewer than 100,000 new daily cases for the first time since November. Health practitioners there say vaccinations are key to get life back to normal.
In the United States, a promising sign of hope this weekend. For the first time since November 3rd, the U.S. is averaging fewer than 100,000 new COVID-19 cases per day. But there's still danger for Americans. An updated IHME model projects more than 610,000 Americans will have died of COVID-19 by June 1st. That's down slightly from last week's forecast. Experts say the key continues to be vaccinating as many people as possible.
I think in order for us to get back to where we were in maybe January of 2020, it's really going to take us achieving that herd immunity marker. And that's not going to happen until we get at least 75% of the population vaccinated.
Leaders are sounding a positive note on vaccines, as new CDC data from Saturday night show that more than 50 million COVID-19 vaccine doses have been administered in the U.S. That's more than 2 million doses reported since Friday, though CDC reporting may be delayed. The new numbers come as states continue to expand their criteria for who can get a vaccine. In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that individuals with comorbidities may now schedule vaccine appointments. The state has already distributed 90% of the first dose vaccines it received from the federal government.
French President Emmanuel Macron is due to join leaders of the Africa G5 Sahel forces at a summit in Chad, which starts today and ends tomorrow. The French president will be expected to participate via a video link. The summit will discuss joint security operations in the region amid a rise in jihadist attacks there. Well, for more on this, let's cross over live to Paris, where Ross Cullen is standing by for us. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Ross, do we have confirmation of President Macron's participation in the Sahel Leaders Summit, and what's likely to be his contribution there? Oh, we seem to have lost Ross. Let's move on to other news. Zimbabwe has received its first batch of COVID-19 vaccines. The 200,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine donated by China were received by Zimbabwe's Vice President. Farai Makutuya reports.
The 200,000 vials that arrived on board this jet will kickstart the national inoculation drive and bolster the response to a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic.
It would have been easy for China to direct its effort inward at this time. But rather than take the easy path, China has continued to support our efforts to contain the pandemic. We received this vaccine as a gleam of hope to the nation that finally we may be on the verge of returning to some semblance of normalcy.
Zimbabwe is one of the first countries to receive the Sinopharm vaccine and plans to get more.
We have a program, and next month we'll be again acquiring additional vaccines from China to the tune of at least 600,000 doses, and the program will continue as we head towards to that target of 1.8 million that will acquire from the People's Republic of China.
Zimbabwe intends to vaccinate 10 million citizens. From here, these vaccines will be distributed to all 10 provinces of the country, ready for inoculations to begin as soon as possible. At the front of the queue to receive those jabs will be healthcare workers, people manning Zimbabwe's border posts, and those employed in the security sector. The jab will assist those in the health sector improve their service delivery.
This will definitely give confidence to the health workers because as it is, they are the most affected people, considering that we don't have any other option. Look at the issue of PPEs. They are in short supply in Zimbabwe in our hospitals, meaning our nurses are vulnerable to to COVID-19, and if they are protected with the vaccines, then definitely will be protecting the citizens of Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe is yet to confirm which other vaccines it will administer, but the government says it is in talks with Russia and India to discuss the possibility of getting their jabs. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, let's go back to that story about French President Emmanuel Macron, who will be joining leaders of the Africa G5 Sahel forces at a summit in Chad, which starts today and ends tomorrow. We're joined now by Ross Cullen, who is standing by for us in Paris. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Ross, do we have a confirmation of President Macron's participation at this summit, and what is likely to be his contribution there?
Yes, Hannah, he is joining. He will be joining by video link. Emmanuel Macron had originally considered possibly attending this summit in the Chadian capital in N'Djamena, but he will be joining in from here in Paris instead. And it's going to be a key meeting to watch because we've got 2 days of talks. To start with, the 5 leaders of the Sahel countries of Mauritania, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso will be attending in the Chadian capital with their Chadian counterpart, the President Idriss Deby being the host of the 5 countries meeting, with the 6th member, Emmanuel Macron, joining via video link for talks today. Tomorrow, they're going to be broadening out their talks to include other international organizations, international actors. We expect the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken to be sending a video message. Also bear in mind, it's not just the 5 countries and France that are involved in this battle against armed groups in the southern Sahara region. There are also UN interests. There are other United States providing intelligence. There are United Kingdom forces, Czech Republic forces as well. And so after that second day of talks on Tuesday, we do expect a news conference as well. So Emmanuel Macron will be joining in this summit, but via video link.
Ross, we've discussed this on the program before. I know you and I have discussed this particular question about the effectiveness of France's involvement in securing the Sahel. What more can France do to restore confidence about its involvement in the West African region?
Well, to restore its confidence, to show its how deeply engaged it was in this fight against armed groups in 2020, it upped its game in terms of troop numbers, in terms of French military infrastructure, taking the number of troops it has in the region to more than 5,000. But one thing we are watching, Hannah, is a possible announcement of a drawback, maybe a reduction in the number of troops back below 5,000 to what it was originally. The French defense minister spoke to the Senate last week, and she was saying that France has carried out operations that have undermined the dismantling of some of these groups. They've undermined the confidence of these armed groups. They are focused more now on groups that have ties to Al-Qaeda. They feel that they have won the battle against the so-called Islamic State Daesh in the region. They're focused now on these Al-Qaeda linked groups. But also there is this question of maybe not a military, maybe there is another answer, Hannah. Maybe there needs to be more focus on governance, and that's something that we can expect maybe some of the political conversation to be taking place, not just around the military solution, but maybe over a community-led, community-based solution, more focus on helping those governments in the 5 capitals to dispersing resources from the capitals into the countryside, into those more remote regions. Particularly, the focus is on that tri-border region between Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger.
Thank you so much for that, Ross. Ross Cullen speaking to us from Paris. Let's now take a short break, but after we return, here's what you can expect. Excitement across Africa ahead of Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's confirmation as head of the World Trade Organization. And we update you on the positive developments in efforts to stabilize Libya.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Shirushi, Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice. How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Welcome back. You're watching News Making Headlines right here on Africa Live. Well, Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala looks set to be confirmed as the first woman and first African head of the World Trade Organization. The WTO has called for a virtual special general council meeting for Monday, where Okonjo-Iweala is expected to be formally selected as the new Director General. However, it is not known when she's to begin operating in the new role. The WTO has not had a leader in that role since Brazilian career diplomat Roberto Azevedo stepped down last August. Well, CGTN's Deji Badmos is following that story, and he joins us now from Lagos. Hi, Deji. Good to see you. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is said to have been a major game changer in Nigeria during her stint in government there. What's the perception about her elevation to the helm of the WTO's leadership?
Well, Hannah, I can tell you, people are really excited. The government here is excited. Everyone is really happy for her. While the process was on to select the WTO DG now, the entire country was rooting for her. The government worked assiduously to ensure she got the job. Let's not also forget that she was not the original candidate of Nigeria. I mean, there was someone else, but then the government changed that individual, replacing that individual now with Okonjo-Iweala, and everyone applauded the government for that. I mean, everyone knows Okonjo-Iweala very well in this country, and everyone is aware of the remarkable achievements she made while she was Minister of Finance in this country on 2 different occasions. So everyone is excited and looking forward to when she would essentially begin work at the WTO.
Did you speak to us about some of the key accomplishments that Okonjo-Iweala had in both Nigeria and also in her international postings?
Now, let's start with something very, very remarkable that she did that is still being practiced in the country today. Before she became the finance minister, people just didn't know what was, how much was allocated to their states or local government areas. So what she did was to ensure that every month, whatever was allocated from the federal post now to the various states of the country and the local government areas was published. So now people have a clear idea of how much their states actually get every month, so they can actually follow the money, and when their governors are not doing well, they can ask questions. That is an enduring legacy from her time that the current government is still practicing. Another thing she did wonderfully well was she spearheaded efforts now by Nigeria to secure debt relief from the Paris Club. Nigeria got about was able to save about $18 billion from that. That is, people are still talking about that till date. And you look at what she did internationally as head of Gavi, for instance, spearheading efforts to ensure that low-income countries, for instance, have access to vaccines now, different vaccines. Talk about polio vaccine, the immunization, polio immunization that took place across not just Nigeria but across Africa. So she was actually instrumental in in Africa's fight against polio and in securing that certificate, that free polio status for Africa. So she did quite a lot, especially her work for low-income countries while she was head of Gavi, and also when she was managing director of the World Bank. People are still talking about that till date. And it's all of these achievements, Hannah, that are actually standing her in good stead. And it's a reason why not just Nigerians, but across Africa and across the world, everyone wants her to head these organizations.
And Deji, I would imagine that's the kind of leadership that they're expecting from her when she comes into this role. But speak to us about other expectations that Nigerians might have ahead of the confirmation.
Well, one of the things that most Nigerians will be looking forward to is how the WTO can actually help in facilitating the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that has come into force. People want to see how that will happen. And people also, Nigerians would want to see how she'd be able to reform the WTO so that it can work better for low-income countries. And that's one of the things that she said she intends to do, one of the reforms that she intends to carry out, that she intends to change some of the policies in WTO to make them work effectively for low-income countries. I mean, it's good that she herself said some of these rules of the WTO, for instance, were actually put in place at a time when most of Africa was still under colonial rule, and that they need to change. So everyone is waiting to see some of the changes that she's going to bring, and to see how those changes now can impact Africa. For Nigeria, it's not just about Nigeria, but it's across the board in Africa, because whatever affects Africa definitely would affect Nigeria. And let's not forget the feel-good factor as well for Nigeria. Hannah, not easy to have one of your own as the head of a global institution as the WTO. So it gives Nigeria some kind of bragging right, and that's what people are talking about here, Hannah.
Did you quickly, before I let you go, being the first African appointed to this role in the WTO, what are you hearing of anything regarding what expectations there might be from the rest of the continent on her?
Look, the fact is, expectation of the continent on her will be quite high. But of course, she is not just going to be the head of the WTO for Africa alone. Let's not forget there are enormous challenges before her. You talk about the huge trade disputes between America and China, for instance, Europe and China, Europe, of course, and almost the rest of the world. So, I mean, her job is no doubt cut out for her. But for Africa, this issue of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that has come into force now, a lot of people would want to see how the WTO would help to make it work better for the continent, so that everyone benefits. I'm talking about every country in Africa now benefits from the initiative. She hasn't said much about it, but probably when she comes into office, people will begin to ask, maybe she'll spell out clearly how the WTO intends to work with Africa to ensure that AFTA works for everyone. So I think that's actually the key expectation from the continent. Of course, there will be other expectations, but when she comes in, definitely demands will be made on her from the continent, no doubt at all.
Thank you so much for that, Deji Badmo, speaking to us from Lagos. Let's head over to North Africa now, where Libya's newly appointed Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh on Saturday confirmed that he had begun working to form a new unity government. Meanwhile, a visit by the head of the Presidency Council to Benghazi has raised hopes of ending Libya's conflict. Mohammed El-Menafi met with the commander of the Libyan National Army, Khalifa Haftar, to discuss unifying Libya's military. Here's Adel Marouchi with more on the significance of the Benghazi visit.
Top politicians from both sides of the Libyan conflict took part in the UN vote for an interim authority. The Speaker of the Eastern Parliament, Aqil Saleh, and the Western Interior Minister, Fathi Bashagha, were on an unsuccessful list of candidates for 4 leadership positions. Libya's new executive authority appears to be redefining political coalitions split between the East, West, and South. The first visit of the chair of the Presidency Council, Mohammed El-Menafi, was to Benghazi. He met with the commander of the Libyan National Army, Khalifa Haftar. The meeting is seen as the LNA officially endorsing the new interim government.
Members loyal to the LNA voted for Al-Menfi's list in the UN meeting. They supported the Speaker of the Parliament. But after Yula Saleh made an alliance with Bashagha, they shifted their support. Haftar and Saleh became divided.
Despite the recent rivalry, Haftar and Saleh have both endorsed El-Menafi and the new interim government in the making. However, criticism flooded in against El-Menafi from politicians in western Libya. The most prominent was Khalid al-Mishri, the head of the High Council of State. He rejected the meeting with Haftar, claiming it doesn't help national reconciliation efforts.
If the LNA objected the interim government, Libya would have been facing a political crisis. But also because the LNA support Al-Menfi, we are seeing tension in the west of Libya. The Council of State are influenced by the Western militia who have been fighting the LNA. They still don't want to see Haftar in the political scene, which means the West might be divided in its support to the interim leadership.
Responding to the criticism in a tweet, Mohammed El-Menafi asked Libyans to support all efforts of inclusion and national unity that the Presidency Council will be leading. He seems to be of the opinion that there is no solution for Libya without bringing the LNA's General Haftar on board. In addition to the LNA, the new executive authority in Libya has the support of the Government of National Accord in the West and the Eastern-based parliament. Since 2015, these 3 entities have never agreed on one leadership. So in a way, a new political coalition appears to be forming in Libya. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, over in Europe, Italy's new prime minister says he is committed to uniting and stabilizing the country after his cabinet was officially sworn in. Mario Draghi is now preparing for 2 crucial parliamentary votes of confidence this week. Hermione Kitson reports on an historic day in Italian politics.
This is Mario Draghi's dream team, the cabinet of the former European Central Bank chief tasked with steering the country through its pandemic recovery.
I swear to be loyal to the Republic, to faithfully respect its constitution, its laws, and to exercise my role in the exclusive interest of the nation.
The 73-year-old was officially sworn in by President Sergio Mattarella during a scaled-down ceremony in line with COVID regulations. Of his 23 ministers, 15 are politicians across the spectrum and 8 are technocrats. Some high-profile ministers retain their portfolios, such as Health Minister Roberto Speranza. After weeks of political turmoil, there was a symbolic transfer of power, the cabinet meeting bell handed from one prime minister to another. And as Giuseppe Conte prepared to leave Palazzo Chigi for the last time, a fond farewell. In a parting statement on Facebook, he thanked the Italian people and said that even on the most difficult days, he was proud and honoured to have served in the role. What led to Conte's downfall will be the cornerstone of Draghi's prime ministership, the management of the $250 billion EU recovery fund as the country deals with a worsening economic crisis. In his first cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Draghi outlined his other priorities as the country's vaccination plan, the environment and education. He said his goal is to unite, restart and secure the country. But firstly, his government needs to pass crucial votes of confidence in the Senate on Wednesday and the lower house on Thursday. Hermione Kitson, CGTN, Pescara.
Well, here's a reminder of our top stories. In Guinea, the health agency has confirmed a new Ebola outbreak in that country. 7 cases and at least 3 deaths have so far been reported in the country's southeast region. 7 of those who had contracted the illness had attended a funeral in Goeka town early this month. The health ministry says they have begun contact tracing of individuals who may have come into contact with the sick. Well, Zimbabwe has received its first batch of COVID-19 vaccines. The 200,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine donated by China were received by Zimbabwe's vice president. The vials will kickstart the national inoculation drive and bolster the response to a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. And Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala looks set to be confirmed as the first woman and first African head of the World Trade Organization. The WTO has called for a virtual special general council meeting for Monday, where Okonjo-Iweala is expected to be formally selected as the new director general. However, it is not yet known when she's to begin operating in the new role. Let's now take a short break and return your business news, including Nigerian farmers and fishermen hail decision to allow them to sue Royal Dutch Shell in English courts.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Time now for the business news. Oil-producing communities in Nigeria's Niger Delta region have welcomed a ruling by the UK Supreme Court allowing a group of Nigerian farmers and fishermen to sue Royal Dutch Shell in English courts. Years of oil spills from commercial activity have contaminated land and groundwater in the Niger Delta region. CGTN's Deji Badmos reports.
It was in their quest to get justice for environmental pollution such as this that farmers and fishermen in Nigeria approached UK courts 5 years ago. Oil-producing areas in the Niger Delta region are heavily impacted by oil spillage blamed on multinationals like Shell. The UK Supreme Court recently ruled that Shell can be held to account for the acts of its overseas subsidiaries. One man who is very excited about the ruling is Reverend Father Edward Obi. He's been working with the Ogali and Bile communities in the region to get justice.
It's not that we wish Shell to suffer these losses, but it's important to note that this is an issue that has lingered for many years, and in spite of the various attempts by well-meaning civil society organizations like ours to engage with Shell and to get them to see what the right thing is and to do it in such a way that both themselves and the local communities will benefit from the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, Shell has been adamant and very recalcitrant and has not bothered to do much.
Legal experts say the Supreme Court ruling could have far-reaching impacts. The ruling could open a floodgate of international litigations against other oil giants.
It's a slap on our legal jurisprudence that communities in Nigeria will now have to go abroad to get justice for oil spillage that happened in Nigeria. Imagine if these matters were in Nigerian court, they would have been, bogged down with all kinds of frivolous applications. And then the funniest part is that most of these multinationals will fail to obey, court orders, and the heavens will not fall. But they can't try it, in Europe. And so that's why this is very toxic and germane.
Oil spills from activities of oil companies have resulted in environmental devastation in the Niger Delta region. Oil firms blame some of the spills on theft and pipeline vandalism, which are rampant in the region. This is by no means the end of this legal battle. In fact, it's like the beginning, but it gives Shell an opportunity to open compensation talks with the two communities involved. And any compensation eventually agreed could eclipse the $83 million Shell paid to another Nigerian community in a similar case back in 2015. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Egypt sold $3.75 billion in Eurobonds this week to partially reduce the $8 billion deficit gap in the state budget. Authorities in the country say low global interest rates on long-term notes have prompted the country to tap the international debt market to extend the maturity of public debt. From Cairo, here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with the details.
This is the first time in 2021 that Egypt has tapped the international market for financing. The issuance included the sale of $750 million in 5-year bonds at 3.875%, $1.5 billion in 10-year bonds at 5.875%, and $1.5 billion in 40-year notes at 7.5%. The $3.75 billion Eurobond was a surprise, since the government had earlier denied it was planning to raise funds from the international market.
The Minister of Finance could have covered the budget gap from the foreign currency reserves of the central bank, but the government wants to diversify the sources of debt to have more hard currency. The aim is to finance part of the budget deficit as there still remains a gap. The finance minister said he would fund the rest of the deficit through different sources like the IMF or local commercial banks and other mechanisms.
The sale was oversubscribed 4 times, with $15 billion worth of orders received. Some experts believe the high demand reflects investor confidence in Egypt.
If we look at the latest bond sale, we managed to release the 40-year notes, which we couldn't do last year, and the return on investment is 7.5%. This shows how strong the economy has become and how lenders are confident about Egypt's ability to repay the debt. The very high demand, which was fourfold, is also a reflection of the trust in Egypt's economy that has seen growth rates at a time when most economies contracted during the pandemic.
In the meantime, Egypt's finance minister, Mohammed Mait, has said that the North African state will not re-enter the international bond market again during the first half of 2021. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Well, let's shift our attention to Uganda, where a group of young entrepreneurs are hoping to solve the problem of poor waste disposal in the capital, Kampala. And that's through a mobile application called Yo Waste. They're linking garbage collectors to people that are in need of that service. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
The next day as a must. Yeah, they're supposed to be seen.
This team of high-tech entrepreneurs are hoping to solve one of Kampala's major problems, garbage. They've designed a mobile application to ease the work of garbage collectors. And with just a click, a waste hauler is at your doorstep.
A person in the community can just simply use this application that is on their phone, right? They're using their smartphone every day. So they can just use that smartphone to order for a waste pickup at their convenience, right? They can be at work, they might even be outside the country and order for a waste pickup. And we can connect them to a waste hauler in their community.
Over 100 clients have subscribed to your waste service.
It makes work easier. We're always in touch with them. It's easier to know their problems. They're easier to come to us. Payments are made easier. Less contact.
And for homeowners, the service is timely.
The system is good. It doesn't allow waste to pile up in an area. It is convenient and promotes hygiene.
Environmentalists say poor waste disposal is the leading cause of pollution in the country. This truck collects about 24 tons of garbage every day, but local authorities say it's not enough to collect all the garbage disposed of in the city. Government statistics show that over 350,000 tons of waste is generated annually from the city, and only half of this is collected.
We have a few challenges that we're working on, say solid waste management, to ensure that bottles, to ensure that polythene are all managed well and taken out of our drainages.
They are now encouraging people to recycle waste.
We can be able to send over a truck that is just going to be able to collect that organic waste and take it to a recycler that is recycling, let me say, organic waste to briquettes, collect the plastic waste, take it to a person that's recycling it, collect paper waste, take it to a person that's recycling it. In that way, we're trying to make sure that the waste is not only decreased in Kampala and taken to a landfill, but also decreased from the landfill itself.
The innovators of this mobile application hope that by the end of this year, they will have over 10,000 households in the capital Kampala using the mobile app, a move that could help save the environment from choking with waste. Hilara Yesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Well, here's what's coming up after the show break. We bring you more uplifting stories of how the Chinese are celebrating the Spring Festival amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Every year, approximately 400 million tons of plastic is produced, and about 40% of that is single use.
79% of that is not recycled, it's not turned into energy, it's just going into landfill or into the environment in some way.
And each year, it is estimated that between 5 to 8 million tons of plastic makes it into our oceans.
When it comes to the environmental cost of plastic, the most obvious one is the entanglement issue, because of plastic getting into food webs, so animals eating plastic.
With the global focus on plastic pollution and my eldest son Tristan studying marine biology, I wanted to get involved and see for myself the true extent of the pollution in our region. We're on our way! Finally the journey starts! I decided that we should go on a voyage off the beaten track, a journey that focuses on the impact of plastics in our oceans. Hopefully you can see God's are good to us and we have reasonable sailing conditions.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In China, the government has encouraged people to stay where they work during the Spring Festival to prevent the spread of COVID-19. One such group following the call is couriers and delivery personnel, and many delivery companies are offering bonuses to employees who do not return home. CGTN's Liu Jiaxin has a story of a courier couple continuing to work during the holiday.
5 years ago, Yang Peiyu and his wife came to Shanghai from eastern China's Anhui province and became couriers for ZTO Express. This year, instead of going back to their hometown, they decided to spend Spring Festival in Shanghai.
I got my 2 children to Shanghai in advance. Then my wife and I will continue working here. When the epidemic abates after the travel rush, we will go back and visit our parents.
I feel like New Year is no different from other days. We go to work every day and we seldom have time to cook. The New Year is just like any other day.
Data from the State Post Bureau shows that this year on New Year's Eve and the first 2 days of the Lunar New Year, more than 130 million express deliveries were handled nationwide, up 223% from last year. 30% of the couriers in Shanghai are continuing to work during the holidays. One reason they are staying is to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, and another is to receive a holiday bonus from their employers.
For Spring Festival, our company gave us gifts and bonuses of 500 yuan per person, and we even get red packets after the holiday. The company also organized staff to have dinner together on New Year's Eve.
Yang Peiyu wishes this year he can take his daughter to the aquarium and hopes his son will make progress in school. As for himself, Yang wishes to continue his work as a courier and do every delivery together with his wife. 刘嘉欣 CGTN 上海。
Let's now shift focus to the U.S. in Barrington, Illinois, where a ranch owner is using miniature horses and donkeys to offer therapy to sick and elderly people amidst the coronavirus pandemic. CGTN's Wanda Mugai has that story.
At the Soul Harbor Ranch in Barrington, Illinois, these miniature horses and donkeys are set for a mission. They are taken to hospitals and nursing homes to connect with and hopefully ease the suffering of the sick and the elderly. Jody Diegel founded the ranch in 2018 with the aim of offering an animal therapy program. But since the coronavirus pandemic hit, she has been operating differently.
We started Zooming, so I would take my phone out and we would start Zooming with all of the places that we used to visit before. And at first it was just me being able to Zoom because we weren't allowing any volunteers to come. But then slowly as things started opening up, we did allow volunteers and we started Zooming more and doing, Google Meet and Teams. And again, an incredible audience.
Hi everybody, welcome to Friday night.
With the animals seemingly excited about the new normal, they could be the newest sensation for animal lovers on social media. Jody has been hosting sessions on Instagram, Zoom and Facebook. She even has a weekly program called Facebook Live at 5. The experience is extending therapy beyond the borders of Illinois.
We had people writing in saying, "Hi from Brazil," or "Hi, I'm sending love from Europe." And the fact that we can meet this audience, international audience, is really incredible.
However, the digital encounter is a bit limiting to the audience. And even in the hospital visits, they can only wave at fans through windows. They need to maintain social distance and minimize contact with the elderly and the patients. Here at Eldon Estates of Barrington Nursing Home, they also brighten days for people with dementia and post-traumatic stress disorder.
I think it uplifts their spirits in a major way. I mean, they haven't been, some of them, able to see their families anything but through a window. So the excitement that they have is literally just through engaging with our staff and some of our activities. And even that has been put on hold when we have outbreaks or patients that are positive or we're suspecting COVID with, just to ensure their safety. I mean, our staff has done an amazing job of keeping the residents safe. So uplifting their spiritual and psychosocial needs is something that's truly important. And by the animals visiting, I mean, the smiles that you'll get from these it's priceless.
Jody works with a team of volunteers that helps feed and care for the animals. In December, they got an addition of 10 puppies that are yet to be trained. Wanjamungai, CGTN.
Now take a short break and return your sport news, including we speak to Senegal's wrestling queen Isabelle Sambo as she takes the sport to more girls in her country.